Hello, my buddy. My name is Luna. Welcome back to English with Luna. This is a space where we learn English calmly, without pressure, without rushing, and without trying to sound perfect. In today's episode, we're going to talk about something very important: how languages are really learned. Not the way we were taught in school, not the way many people promise on the internet, but the real process, the one that actually happens in your mind and in your daily life. If you understand English, but still feel stuck when you try to speak, if you feel like you've been learning for a long time, but something is missing, this episode is for you. This podcast is made for beginners and pre-intermediate learners, so we'll speak slowly, clearly, and naturally. You don't need to take notes. You don't need to repeat after me. Just listen, relax, and let the language come to you. All right, let's begin. Many people start learning English with a lot of motivation. At the beginning, everything feels exciting. New words, new sounds, new possibilities. But after some time, something strange happens. You can understand more, you can watch videos, you can follow conversations. And yet, when it's time to speak, your mouth doesn't move. You know the words, but they don't come out. And that's when frustration appears. You start thinking, why am I not improving? Why do I understand, but I can't speak? Am I doing something wrong? Maybe you studied grammar for years. Maybe you memorized vocabulary lists. Maybe you tried different apps, courses, or videos. And still, speaking feels heavy, slow, uncomfortable. Many people think this means they're bad at languages, or that they started too late, or that English is just not for them. But that's not the truth. The real problem is not your intelligence, it's not your memory, and it's definitely not your accent. The problem is that most of us learned English in a way that looks good on paper, but doesn't help the brain speak. We were taught to think about the language, instead of living inside it. So when real communication appears, the mind freezes. And that silence, that moment where you want to speak but can't, it hurts more than making mistakes. If you feel that way, you're not alone. And more importantly, nothing is wrong with you. So now, let's talk about how languages are really learned. Not in theory, not in perfect conditions, but in real life. Languages are not learned by knowing more rules. They're learned by creating familiarity. Your brain doesn't need more information. It needs more moments. Moments where English is present, without pressure, without performance, without fear. That's why one of the most powerful things you can do is start speaking when no one is listening. Talking to yourself is not strange. It's natural. It's how the brain connects thought and sound. When you describe what you're doing, when you say small, simple things in English during your day, you're teaching your mind that English is safe. I'm making coffee. I'm sitting on my bed. I'm a little tired today. It doesn't matter if it's simple. Simple is perfect. Another important part is listening to English that feels alive. Not exercises, not tests, but voices. A series you enjoy, a character you like, a scene you've watched many times. When you read a script or repeat a line from a show, you're not trying to be perfect. You're borrowing rhythm, you're borrowing melody, you're borrowing confidence. And slowly, your own voice starts to change. You don't need to understand every word. Understanding comes later. First comes exposure, then familiarity, then expression. This is how languages grow inside us, quietly, slowly, and with repetition that feels human. There's no rush here. You're not behind. You're learning the way languages have always been learned. And now, I want to talk to you honestly. not as a teacher, not as someone who has everything figured out, but as someone who understands how confusing and exhausting this process can feel sometimes. Because learning a language is not only about words or sounds, it's about emotions, and that part is rarely talked about. There are days when you practice, when you listen, when you try to speak, and you still feel like nothing is changing. You feel like you should be further by now, like all the effort you're making should already be visible, and when it isn't, it's very easy to feel disappointed with yourself. And that disappointment hurts, especially when you actually care, when you really want to express who you are, what you think, what you feel, but English doesn't let you do that yet. So you stay quiet, you simplify yourself, or you avoid situations where you might have to speak. And slowly, without noticing, you start thinking that maybe you're just not good at languages, or that something is wrong with the way you learn. But the truth is, this feeling is part of the process. It's not a sign that you're failing, it's a sign that your brain is working. Learning to speak a language means staying in uncertainty for a long time. It means accepting that you won't sound like yourself for a while, and that's uncomfortable for anyone. No one likes feeling limited, no one likes feeling slow, and no one likes hearing their own mistakes. So if you feel tired or impatient, or even a little embarrassed sometimes, that doesn't make you weak, it makes you normal. Progress in languages doesn't happen in big moments. It happens quietly, in the background, while you're living your life. One day, you realize you understood something without translating. Another day, you say a sentence without thinking too much. And those moments don't feel dramatic, but they mean everything. They happen because you stayed, because you didn't quit when it felt boring or frustrating or slow. So I want you to be gentle with yourself here. You don't need to push harder, you don't need to judge yourself every day, you don't need to sound fluent yet. You just need to keep a soft connection with the language. Let it be part of your routine, part of your thoughts, part of your world. Because languages grow when we stop fighting them and start allowing them to exist in our lives, imperfectly, slowly, honestly. And if right now you're in that uncomfortable middle, where you understand more than you can say, where you feel stuck but still curious, that's not a bad place to be. That's actually where real learning happens. So before we finish this episode, I just want to leave you with something simple. You don't need to change the way you learn English overnight, and you don't need to add pressure to a process that is already demanding enough. You don't need a perfect routine, and you don't need to feel motivated every single day. What really matters is that English has a place in your life, even a small one, even a quiet one. If today all you do is listen, that's enough. If tomorrow you talk to yourself for a minute, that's progress. If one day you feel confident and the next day you don't, that doesn't erase what you've learned. Language doesn't disappear just because you have a bad day. It stays with you. It waits, and it grows when you give it time and attention. I want this space to feel calm for you, a place where you don't have to rush, where you don't have to impress anyone, where you don't have to sound like a native speaker to feel valid. Here, learning English is not about performance, it's about connection. Connection with the language and also with yourself. So if this episode helped you feel a little more relaxed about your English, if it made you feel understood, or if it simply gave you company for a few minutes, then I'm really glad you were here. And if you want to keep walking this path slowly at your own pace, you're always welcome to come back. Thank you for listening. Thank you for staying. And thank you for trusting the process, even when it feels unclear. Take care of yourself. Keep English close to you in a gentle way, and I'll see you in the next episode of English with Luna.